Promisse, Chapter 1. I was being followed. It was kind of ironic considering the way I could been following others for the last few weeks. At least, it was not a strigoi I could have already known. A recent effect of my being shadow kissed was the ability to sense the undead through bouts of nausea, unfortunately. Still, I appreciated my body's early warning system and I was relieved my stalker tonight was not an insensely fast, insensely vicious vampire. I could fought enough of those recently and kind of wanted a night off. I had to guess my follower was a vampire like me, probably one from the club. Admittedly, the person was moving a little less stealthily than I could have expected of a dampier. Footsteps were clearly audible against the pavement of a dark side streets I was traveling on, and once I could got a brief glimpse of a shadowy figure. Still, considering my rash actions tonight, a dampier was the most likely culprit. It had all started earlier at the night tangle. That was not the club's true name, only a translation. Its real name was something Russian that was beyond my ability to pronounce. Back in the US, the Nightingale was well known among rich Morai who traveled abroad, and now I could understand why. No matter what time of the day it is, people at the Nightingale dressed like they were at the Imperial Ball. And well, the whole place actually kind of looked like something from the old royal days of Russia, with ivory walls covered in gold, scrollwork, and molding. It reminded me a lot of Winter Place, a royal residency left over from when Russia had still been ruled by Cyrus. I could torture it upon first arriving in St. Petersburg. At the night angle, elaborate chandeliers filled the real candles glittering in the air, lighting up the golden decor so that even in the dim lighting, the whole establishment sparkled. There was a large dining room filled with velvet draped tables and booths, as well as the lounge and the bar area where people could mingle. Late in the evening, a band could set up in there and couples could hit the dance floor. I had not bothered with the night angle when I arrived in the city a couple weeks ago. I could be arrogant enough to think I could find Morai right away, who could direct me to Drumit's hometown in Siberia, with no other clues about where Drumit had gone in Siberia. Heading to the town he could grown up in had been my best chance of getting closer to him. Only I don't know where it was, which was why I was trying to find Morai to help me. There were a number of Dampier towns and communes in Russia, but hardly any in Siberia, which made me believe most local Morai could be familiar with his birthplace. Unfortunately, it turned out that the Morai who lived in human cities were very good at keeping themselves hidden. I checked what I thought were likely Morai hangouts, only to come up empty. And without those Morai, I had no answers. So I could begin stacking out at the night angle, which was not easy. It was hard for an 18-year-old girl to bend into one of the city's most elite clubs. I could soon find the expensive clothes and large enough tips went a long way towards helping me get by. The wait staff had come to know me, and if they thought my presence was strange, they don't say so, and were happy to give me the corner table I always asked for. I think they thought I was a daughter of some tycoon or politician. Whatever my background, I had money to be there, which was all they cared about. Even so, my first few nights there had been discouraging. The night angle might have been an elite hangout for Morai, but it was also frequented by humans. And at first, it had seemed those were the club's only patrons. Crowds grew larger as the night progressed, and in peering through the packed tables and people lingering at the bar, I could see no Morai. The most notable thing I could see was a woman with long platinum blonde hair walking into the long queue with a group of friends. For a moment, my heart had stopped. The woman had her back to me, but she had looked so much like Lisa that I could feel certain I could be tracked down. The weird thing was, I don't know whether to feel excited or horrified. I missed Lisa so much, yet at the same time, I don't want her to involved in the dangerous trip of mine. Then the woman had turned around. It was not Lisa. She was not even Morai, just a human. Slowly, my breathing returned to normal. Finally, a week or so ago, I could had my first sighting. A group of Morai women had come to for a late lunch, accompanied by two guardians, one male and one female, who sat dutifully and quietly at the table as their charges gossiped and laughed over afternoon champagne. Dogging those guardians had been the trickiest part. For those who know what to look for, Morai were easy to spot, taller than most humans, pale and slim. They also had a certain funny way of smiling, holding their lips in order to hide their fangs. Dampers with our human blood appeared, well, human. That was certainly how I looked at the untrained human eye. I was about 5'7", and whereas Morai tend to have unreal runway model bodies, mine was athletic built and curvy in the chest. Genetics from my unknown Tashkent father, and too much time in the sun had given me the light tan that paired well with long, nearly black hair and equally dark eyes. But those who had been raised in the Morai world could spot me as a Dampier, though close examination. I'm not sure what it was, maybe some instinct that drew us to our own kind and recognition the mix of Morai blood. Regardless, it was imperative that I appear human to those guardians, so I don't raise their alarms. I sat across the room in my corner, picking over caviar and pretending to read my book. For the record, I thought caviar was disgusting, but it seems to be everywhere in Russia, particularly in the nice places that and broadcast a kind of beet soup. I almost never finished my food at the night angle and could reverently hit McDonald's afterwards, even though the Russian McDonald's restaurants was a bit different from what I have grown up in the US. Still, a girl had to eat. So it became a test of my skill, studying the Morai when their guardians were not watching. Admittedly, the guardians had little to fear during the day, since there could be no strigoi out in the sun. But it was in guardian nature to watch everything, and their eyes continually swept the room. I could have the same training and know their tricks, so I managed to spy without detection. The woman came back a lot, usually late in the afternoon. Strain Valdemix ran on a non-cultural schedule, but Morai and Dampiers living out among humans either ran on a daylight schedule or something in between. For a while, I considered approaching them or even their guardians. Something held me back. If anyone could know where a town of Dampiers lived, it could be male Morai. Many of them visited Dampiers towns in hopes of scoring easy Dampiers goods. So I promised myself I could wait another week to see if any guys came by. If not, I could see what kind of information the woman could give me. At last, a couple days ago, the two Morai guys had started showing up. They tend to come later in the evening, when the real parties arrived. The men were about 10 years older than me and striking handsome, wearing designer suits and silk ties. They carried themselves like powerful, important people, and I could have bet good money that they were royal, particularly since each one came with a guardian. The guardians were always the same young men who wore suits to bend in, but still carefully watched the room with their clever guardian nature. And there were women, always women. The two Morai were terrible flirts, continuously scooping out and hitting on every woman and slight even humans. But they never went home with any humans. That was a tobacco, still firmly ingrained in our world. Mora had kept themselves separate from humans for centuries, fearing rejection from a race that had grown so plentifully and powerful. Still, that don't mean the men went home alone. At some point in the evening, Dampier women usually showed up different ones every night. They could come in wearing low-cut dresses and a lot of makeups, drinking heavily and laughing at everything the guys said, which probably was not even that funny. The women always wore their hair down, but every once in a while they could shift their heads in a way that showed their necks, which was heavily barraged. They were blood whores, Dampiers, who let Morai drink blood during sex. There was also tobacco, though it still happened in secret. I kept wanting to get one of the Morai men alone, away from the watchful eyes of his guardians, so that I could question him. But it was impossible. The guardians never left their Morai unattended. I even attempted to follow them, but each of the time in the group left the club. They could almost immediately hoop into a limsoni, making it impossible for me to track them on foot. It was frustrating. I finally decided tonight that I could have to approach the whole group and risk detection by the Dampiers. I don't know if anyone from back home was actually looking for me or if the group could even care who I was. Maybe I just had too high an opinion for myself. It was definitely possible that no one was actually concerned about a runway dropout. But if anyone was looking for me, my description had undoubtedly been circulated amongst guardians worldwide. Even though I was now 18, I could not have put it past some of the people I know to haul me back to the US, and there is no way I could return until I found Rimmer. Then, just as I was considering my move in the group of Morai, one of the Dampier women left the table to walk up to the bar. The guardians watched her, of course, but seemed confident about her safety, and they were more fixated on the Morai. All this time, I could be thinking Morai men could be the best way to go to get the information about a village of Dampiers and Bloodhouse. But what better way to locate this place than by asking an actual Bloodhouse? I stole casually from my table and approached the bar like I too was going to get a drink. I stood by the woman, waited for the bar attendant, and studied her in my periphery. She was blonde and wore a long dress covered in silvery squints. I could not decide if it made by black satin silk dress appear tasteful or boring. All of her movements, even the way she stood, were graceful, like a dancer's. The bar attendant was helping others, and I know it was now or never. I leaned towards her. Do you speak English? She jumped in surprise and looked over at me. She was older than I expected, her age cleverly concealed by makeup. Her blue eyes assessed me quickly, recognizing me as a Dampier. Yes, she said wearily. Even the one word carried a thick accent. I'm looking for your town, where a lot of Dampiers live, out in Siberia. Do you know what I'm talking about? I need to find it. Again, she studied me, and I could not read her expression. She might as well have been a guardian for all that her face revealed. Maybe she could trade at one time in her life. Don't, she said bluntly. Let it go. She turned away, her gaze back on the bar attendant as he made someone a blue cocktail ordered with cherries. I touched her arm. I had to find it. There is a man. I choked on the word. So much for my cool interrogation. Just thinking about Remit had my heart sink in my throat. How could I even explain it to this woman? That I was following a long, short clue, seeking out the man I loved the most in the world, a man who had been turned into a strigoi and who I needed to kill? Even now, I could picture the warmth of his brown eyes and the way his hands used to touch me. How could I do what I had crossed an ocean to do? Focus, Rose, focus. The Dampier woman looked back at me. He is not worth it, she said, mistaking my meaning. No doubt she thought it was a lovesick girl chasing some boyfriend, which I supposed I kind of was. You're too young. It is not too late for you to avoid all that. Her face might have been impassive, but there was sadness in her voice. Go and do something else with your life. Stay away from that place. You know where it is, I exclaimed, too worked up to explain that I was not going there to be a blood whore. Please, you have to tell me. I have to get there. Is there a problem? Both she and I turned and looked into the fiery face of one of the guardians. Damn, the Dampier woman might not be that top priority, but they could have noticed someone harassing her. The guardians was only a little older than me, and I gave him a sweet smile. I might not be spilling out of my dress like this other woman, but I know my short skirt did great things for my legs. Surely even a guardian was not immune to that. Well, apparently he was. His hard expression showed that my charms were not working. Still, I figured I might as well try my luck with him. One getting into. I am trying to find a town in Siberia, a town where Dampiers live. Do you know it? He don't blink. No. Wonderful. Both were playing difficult. Yeah, well, maybe your boss does? I asked demurely, hoping I sounded like an uprising letter. If the Dampiers could not talk, maybe one of the Morai could. Maybe he wants some company and could talk to me. He already has company. The guardian replied evenly. He does not need any more. I kept the smile on. Are you sure? I purred. Maybe we should ask him. No, replied the guardian. In that one word, I had the challenge and the command back off. He won't hesitate to take on anyone he thought was a threat to his master, even a lowly Dampier girl. I considered pushing my case further, but quickly decided to follow the warnings and needed back off. And indeed, back off. I gave an unconcerned hissless, and with no other words, I walked casually back to my table, like the rejection was no big deal. All the while, I held my breath, half expecting the guardian to drag me out of the club by my hair. It don't happen. Yet, as I gathered my coat and set some cash on the table, I saw him watching me, eyes wary and calculating. I left the night angle with that some nonchalant air heading out towards the busy street. It was a Saturday night and there were a lot of other clubs and restaurants nearby. Partygoers filled the streets, some dressed as richly as night angle platoons, others were my age and dressed in casual wear. Lines spilled out of the clubs, dance music loud and heavy with bass. Glass fronted restaurants showed elegant dinners and richly set tables. As I walked through the crowds, surrounded by Russian conversation, I resisted the urge to look behind me. I don't want to raise any further suspicion if the Dampier was watching. Yet, when I turned down a quiet street that was a shortcut back to my hotel, I could hear the soft sounds of the footsteps. I apparently had raised enough alarm that the guardian had decided to follow me. Well, there was no way I was going to let him get the drop on me. I might have been smaller than him and wearing a dress and heels, but I had fought plenty of men, including a Strigoi. I could hardly handle this guy, especially if I used the element of surprise. After walking this neighborhood for long, I know it and its twists and turns well. I picked up my pace and darted around a few corners, one of which led me to the dark, deserted alley. Scary, yeah, but it made for a good ambush spot when I ducked into a doorway. I quietly stepped out of my high heeled shoes. They were back with pretty leash straps, but not ideal in a fight, unless I planned on gouging someone in the eye with a heel. Actually, not a bad idea. But I was not quite that desperate. Without them, the pavement was cold beneath my bare feet, since I had rained early in the day. I don't have to wait long. A few moments later, I heard the footsteps and saw my pale long shadow appear on the ground, cast in the flickering light of a street lamp on the adjacent road. My stalker came to a stop, no doubt searching for me. Really, I thought, this guy was careless. No guardian in pursuit could have been so obvious. He should have moved with more stealth and not revealed himself so easily. Maybe the guardian training here in Russia was not as good as what I had grown up with. No, that could not be true. Not that the way Dremet had dispatched his enemies. They could call him a god or the academic. My pursuit took a few more steps, and that is when I made my move. I leaped out, first ready. Okay, I exclaimed. I only wanted to ask a few questions. So just back off or else. I froze. The guardian from the club was not standing there. A human was. A girl no older than me. She was about my height with cropped dark blonde hair and a navy blue trench coat that looked expensive. Underneath it, I could see nice dress pants and leather boots that looked as pricey as the coat. More startling still was that I recognized her. I could seen her twice in the night angle, talking to the Morai man. I assumed she was just another of the women they liked to flirt with and had prominently dismissed her. After all, what use was a human to me? Her face was partly covered in shadow, but even in poor lighting, I could make out her annoyed expression that was not quite what I had expected. It is you, is not it? She asked. Kumar shock. Her English was as American as my own. You're the one who has been leaving the string of sugar bodies around the city. I saw you back in the club tonight and know it had to be you. I Um, no other words formed on my lips. I had no idea how to respond. A human talking casually about Strigoi? It was unheard of. This was almost more astonishing than actually running into a Strigoi out here. I have never experienced anything like this in my life. She don't seems to care about my stupefied state. Look, you cannot just do that, okay? Do you know what a pain in the ass it is for me to deal with? This internship is bad enough without you making a mess of it. The police found the body you left in the park. You know, you cannot even imagine how many strings I had to pull to cover that up. Who? Who are you? I asked at last. It was true. I had left a body in the park. But seriously, what was I supposed to do? Drag him back to my hotel and tell the bellhop my friend had had too much of drink? Cindy, the girl said wearily. My name is Cindy. I am the alchemist assigned here. The what? She signed loudly, and I was pretty sure she rolled her eyes. Of course, that explains everything. No, not really. I said, finally regaining my composure. In fact, I think you're the one who has a lot of explaining to do. And attitude too. Or is some kind of test they sent me here for me? Oh man, that's it. I was getting angry now. I don't like being casted. I certainly don't like being chastised by a human who made it sound like me killing Strigoi was a bad thing. Look, I don't know who you are or how you know about any of this, but I'm not going to stand here and nausea rolled over me and I tensed, my hand immediately going back to the silver stake I'd kept in my pocket coat. Cindy still that not expression, but it was mingled with confusion now at the abrupt change in my posture. She was observant, I could give her that. What is wrong? She asked. You are going to have another body to deal with. I said, just as the Strigoi attacked her.